Listen carefully. What if I told you that the very thing that's keeping you stuck in life is something you've been carrying around without even realizing it? What if I told you that the reason you haven't reached your potential yet, no matter how hard you've worked, how many opportunities have come your way, or how much talent you've got, isn't any of those things? It's something far more powerful, something that controls every decision you make, often without you even knowing it. That thing is fear. You might be thinking of fear. What do you mean by that? I'm not afraid of anything. But let me be clear, fear doesn't always look like what we expect it to. It's not always that obvious, all-consuming panic we experience in the face of danger. In fact, fear is often subtle. It's the voice in your head that whispers, "What if I fail?" Or "You're not good enough for this." It's the hesitation before you take that big step, that moment of doubt when you're about to go after your dreams. That voice, that feeling of discomfort, that's fear in action. But here's the problem. Most of us don't recognize fear for what it truly is. We think fear is something we can ignore or push aside. We think it's just a momentary obstacle, something that will go away if we wait long enough or distract ourselves enough. But fear doesn't go away by being ignored. Instead, it grows. It takes root in your mind and your thoughts and slowly begins to control how you act, how you think, and what you believe is possible for your life. Fear is sneaky. It doesn't announce itself as something that's holding you back. It hides behind your excuses, your procrastination, your doubts, and your reasons for why you can't move forward. It tells you, wait until you feel more ready, or this isn't the right time, or you don't have enough experience. It whispers that you're not prepared or that the risk is too great. It convinces you that the fear you feel is a warning, something to heed, when in reality, it's just a story you've been telling yourself. I want you to think about this for a moment. How many times have you let fear hold you back from going after what you want? Think about all the dreams, the opportunities, the relationships, or the success that you've avoided because fear made you doubt yourself. Every time you've stayed in your comfort zone, every time you've chosen safety over growth, fear was the reason. Fear doesn't just affect you in the big moments. It's in the small moments too, the ones that seem insignificant but add up over time. It's the little decisions you make when you choose to stay where you are because the unknown feels too uncertain, too risky. Fear keeps you stuck in a loop of doubt and hesitation. But here's the truth you need to hear. Fear is not your enemy. In fact, fear can be your greatest ally if you understand it. Fear is a signal. It's telling you that you're stepping into something new, something unfamiliar, something that could change your life for the better. That feeling of discomfort, that nervous energy, is your body's way of saying, you're on the edge of something big. Think about it. The very things that scare you the most, the things that make you anxious or nervous, are usually the things that offer the most growth. You want to build a business? Fear will be there whispering, what if you fail? But that same fear is the signal that you're on the right path. You want to speak in public? Fear will be there, telling you you're going to mess up. But it's only because you're stepping into a new level of growth, a new challenge. That's how fear works. It's not the danger, it's the discomfort. And the key to overcoming fear isn't to avoid it. It's to face it head on. It's to recognize that fear is not a sign of weakness or failure. It's a sign of strength, a sign that you're stretching yourself beyond what's comfortable. Every time you face your fear, every time you push through it, you are expanding your boundaries, and with every step you take, you get closer to the person you are meant to be. But most people never move through their fear because they misunderstand it. They see fear as a signal to stop, to pull back, to quit. But fear is really the signal to go forward, to press on. So, what if you could learn to look at fear differently? What if you could see fear as a friend rather than an enemy, as something that pushes you to be more, to do more, to grow in ways you never thought possible? Here's the bottom line. Fear is what's keeping you stuck. But once you recognize it for what it is, you can stop letting it control you. You can start moving through it. And when you do, you'll realize that the real key to overcoming fear is not to try to eliminate it, but to understand it, to use it, and to turn it into the very thing that drives you toward your dreams. Fear is not something that just happens to you. It is something that originates in your mind, shaped by your thoughts, experiences, and perceptions. Most of the time, fear is an automatic reaction to something new or unknown. But what we don't always realize is that fear is not necessarily connected to real danger. In many cases, it's an illusion, a product of our imagination. The mind has a tendency to create worst-case scenarios that can seem real, but are rarely based on fact. This is why fear often holds us back in ways that don't serve us. It's the way our brain interprets potential threats that causes us to doubt ourselves or even avoid situations altogether. Fear comes from the primitive part of the brain, the amygdala, that's designed to protect us from physical harm. This system was necessary for survival in ancient times when the dangers of the world were much more immediate, like wild animals or hostile environments. When we encountered these dangers, the amygdala would trigger the fight or flight response, preparing us to act quickly. The feeling of fear was a protective mechanism designed to keep us alive. The problem today is that this same system is triggered in situations where there's no real danger. A presentation at work, starting a new project, or even approaching someone you're interested in can all trigger the same fear response in the brain as if you were facing a physical threat. Because of this, fear doesn't always help us make better decisions. It often leads to overestimating risks and underestimating our own abilities. We think of fear as something that's meant to keep us safe, but it often has the opposite effect. Instead of helping us avoid danger, it holds us back from pursuing opportunities, trying new things, or taking risks that could lead to growth and success. What's more, the more we avoid fear, the stronger it becomes. The brain starts to associate certain activities or situations with fear, and the cycle of avoidance continues. Recognizing this is crucial. Fear is not a sign that you shouldn't move forward. It's often a sign that you're on the edge of something that could expand your limits and bring you closer to achieving your goals. The key is to stop letting the fear dictate your action. Instead, challenge it, confront it. Understand that fear is not an accurate reflection of the real dangers or risks in your life, but a product of your own thinking. It's time to stop letting fear control your decisions and start using it as a signal to take action. Fear, when understood correctly, serves a purpose. It's meant to protect you. At its core, fear is an evolutionary response designed to safeguard you from real dangers. When our ancestors faced physical threats, like wild animals or dangerous weather conditions, fear kicked in as a survival mechanism. The body would respond by either fighting back or running away. This is known as the fight or flight response. It was vital for survival because it helped people react quickly in life-threatening situations. But here's the problem. The world we live in today is vastly different from the one our ancestors inhabited. Our daily lives are rarely filled with immediate physical threats that require us to fight or flee. Yet the same fear response still gets triggered in situations that don't pose a real physical danger at all. For example, standing up to speak in front of a crowd, asking for a raise, or even making a bold career move can provoke the same intense fear response we would feel if we were facing a physical threat. The body reacts with increased heart rate, shallow breathing, and heightened awareness. But there's no tiger chasing you or predator on the hunt. This is the misinterpretation of fear. The problem comes when we start to equate all fear with danger. Fear in modern life doesn't necessarily indicate an actual threat. It's more often a sign that we are stepping out of our comfort zones. It's telling us that we are about to do something unfamiliar, something that might lead to personal growth or change. Yet instead of using fear as a signal that we are on the right path, we often let it stop us in our tracks. This is where fear becomes a tool of self-sabotage. In its original context, fear protected us. But in today's world, fear often works against us. It tricks us into avoiding opportunities, shrinking back from challenges, and avoiding discomfort. It convinces us that staying within our safe boundaries is safer than facing something new, even though the risk is rarely as severe as our brain makes it out to be. By understanding that fear no longer serves the same protective function it once did, we can learn to see it for what it really is, a signal that we're stepping into new territory and that growth is just on the other side. To use fear as a tool, we must first acknowledge that it's not always a warning to retreat, but rather an invitation to expand, to challenge ourselves, and to face new experiences. The more we do this, the more we break the cycle of fear holding us back from living a life of potential and progress. Fear can be a useful tool when we begin to embrace it as part of the journey instead of something to avoid. Fear thrives in the presence of uncertainty. The more uncertain a situation feels, the more fear creeps in, convincing you that you are not in control. It's a psychological trick. When we feel uncertain about something, we naturally try to grasp for control to make the situation feel safer, more predictable. But here's the paradox. This constant need for control often fuels our fear, rather than alleviating it. The more we try to control every aspect of a situation, the more we build up fear around the parts of life that are inherently out of our control. This is where fear can turn into a cycle, holding us back from making progress. At its core, fear is a product of our mind's attempt to predict what will happen next. It creates scenarios in our head, often extreme, about the worst possible outcomes. The more you try to plan, organize, and control every detail, the more your mind envisions dangers and risks, leading to more fear. We become trapped in a loop of overthinking and excessive planning, waiting for the perfect moment when everything feels controlled and risk-free. The reality is that life is unpredictable, and no matter how much we try to control it, uncertainty is always going to be a part of the process. And it's in that uncertainty that growth lies. When you focus too much on control, you might find yourself avoiding risks altogether. You don't take the leap because you're scared of what might go wrong, and fear tells you that the risk is too great. You tell yourself that you'll take action once you feel more prepared, once you have more certainty, once you've controlled every variable. But the truth is, there is never a perfect moment. The need for control creates a barrier to action, and that's when fear wins. It convinces you that if you don't have control over the outcome, it's better not to try at all. What we fail to recognize is that uncertainty and control are two sides of the same coin. Every time you try to control an outcome, you increase the fear of what might go wrong. But if you let go of the need to control everything, you can free yourself from the paralyzing effects of fear. The most successful people in the world don't avoid uncertainty, they embrace it. They don't wait for the perfect moment because they understand that perfection isn't the goal. Growth comes from learning how to take action even when you don't have all the answers, even when the outcome is uncertain. When you stop trying to control every variable, you open yourself up to possibility. Fear no longer holds you hostage because you've learned to move forward in spite of it. The ability to move through fear and uncertainty is a muscle you have to develop. The more you challenge your need for control and allow yourself to experience the discomfort of uncertainty, the less fear will dictate your choices. The truth is, you will never have total control over every situation, and that's okay. It's through letting go of this need for control that you'll find the freedom to take risks and ultimately the courage to move forward in life. The cycle of fear is one that many people unknowingly fall into, and it often works like this. Fear arises, and instead of confronting it, you avoid it. The more you avoid, the stronger the fear becomes till it begins to dictate your decisions and action. This is the insidious nature of fear. It grows the more you let it control. When you retreat from fear, you think you're protecting yourself, but all you're really doing is reinforcing the very thing that's holding you back. Avoidance feels like the safer option in the short term, but in the long run, it keeps you stuck, trapped in a cycle of inaction and self-doubt. But here's the key. You must recognize that avoiding fear doesn't make it go away. In fact, it only strengthens it. Fear feeds off your avoidance, and each time you back down from an opportunity or a challenge, fear wins. It sends the message to your brain that this is something you shouldn't do, and the next time the situation arises, the fear response will be even stronger. The more you back away, the more you reinforce the idea that you can't handle it. The more you avoid, the more your comfort zone shrinks, and the less likely you are to ever step outside of it. Fear, in this sense, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Breaking the cycle starts with facing fear head-on. It doesn't mean you have to throw yourself into situations that terrify you without any preparation, but it does mean that you have to stop running from discomfort. You have to understand that discomfort and fear are natural parts of the growth process. The first time you step into something unknown or take a risk, it will likely trigger fear. But every time you take that step, you break down the wall that fear has built and you come closer to conquering it. The key is not to let fear dictate when you act. Instead, act despite it. When you stop running from fear, you start to reclaim your power. You begin to make decisions from a place of courage rather than fear. The more you confront fear, the more you realize that it doesn't have the power you thought it had. It's not as big, as dangerous, or as overwhelming as it seems in your mind. You'll begin to see that your biggest limitations aren't the external factors you once blamed. They're the ones you've built inside your own mind, and they can be dismantled. It's essential to acknowledge that facing fear won't always be easy, and there will be moments of doubt. But the more you practice moving through fear, the less control it has over you. Each time you take action despite your fear, you gain more confidence, more self-trust, and more clarity. Over time, confronting fear becomes a habit, a muscle you've built. As this muscle strengthens, you'll find that fear loses its grip on you, and instead of holding you back, it propels you forward, showing you the way to growth, success, and a life full of untapped potential. Fear is often viewed as something negative, something to avoid or push away. But what if I told you that the way you perceive fear can actually be one of the most powerful shifts you can make in your life? Fear doesn't have to be an obstacle. It can be a motivator. The difference between those who succeed and those who get stuck often lies in their ability to reframe fear. Instead of seeing fear as a barrier, successful people learn to view it as a sign that they're on the right track, that they're stepping into unknown territory where growth and opportunity reside. When fear creeps in, it's not always a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's often a sign that you're doing something right. Think about it. When was the last time you were afraid of something that wasn't significant to your personal growth or future? The things that scare us the most are often the things that have the potential to transform our lives. But to harness fear as a motivator, you first need to shift how you view it. Fear is not a wall, it's a door. It's a door that leads to new experiences, new perspectives, and new achievements. Reframing fear involves changing your internal dialogue. Instead of thinking, this is too risky, or what if I fail? Ask yourself, what if I succeed? What if this challenge leads me to the next level of success? What if I gain something valuable from the experience, even if I don't get everything perfect? This shift in thinking doesn't eliminate the fear, but it redirects your energy toward the possibilities rather than the potential pitfalls. Another way to reframe fear is to realize that it's not the fear of failure that holds us back. It's the fear of not trying, the fear of what might happen if we do nothing. It's easy to convince ourselves that failure is worse than remaining stuck, but in truth, doing nothing is far more dangerous. The only true failure is the failure to take action, to make an attempt, and to learn from the process. The fear of trying and failing is nothing compared to the fear of regretting never having tried at all. Reframing fear also involves recognizing that fear is not a reflection of your abilities, but of your potential. Every time you face fear, you're learning more about what you're capable of. Each time you push through it, you prove to yourself that you can overcome challenges, that you have the resilience to keep going even when things get tough. When you start seeing fear not as a barrier, but as a clue that you're about to do something important, you'll begin to see it as a powerful ally, not an enemy. The key here is understanding that fear isn't the end of the road. It's just the beginning. It's a signal that you're pushing yourself beyond your limits. And that's where the magic happens. So, instead of running from fear, learn to embrace it. Let it motivate you. Let it drive you. And let it remind you that you are capable of more than you ever imagined. The impact of fear on your life isn't just about your actions. It's also about the way it influences your thoughts and beliefs. Fear often distorts your perception, convincing you that certain outcomes are inevitable or that certain risks are too great to take. It magnifies the potential for failure while downplaying the possibilities for success. The problem with this is that fear doesn't show you the whole picture. It's like putting on a pair of glasses that only let you see the obstacles, the dangers, and the reasons to hold back. It's not until you take off those glasses and see things clearly that you realize the risks are manageable and the rewards are worth the effort. When fear is allowed to take control of your mind, it distorts your reality and your ability to see opportunities clearly. It often convinces you that you're not ready, that you don't have enough experience, or that you don't deserve success. This negative thinking can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe these things, you're less likely to take the actions necessary to make progress. But the truth is, these beliefs aren't based on reality. They're based on fear's distorted perception of what might happen. And when you break free from that distorted view, you begin to see things for what they really are. Challenges to overcome, not insurmountable obstacles. The way to break free from fear's grip on your mind is through action. The more you act in spite of your fear, the clearer your mind becomes. Each step forward, no matter how small, pushes back the fog of doubt and reveals the truth behind the fear. You start to see that failure isn't the end of the world. It's simply part of the learning process. Every successful person has faced fear, and every successful person has learned to act despite it. The key is not to wait for fear to disappear, because it never will. The key is to move forward anyway. What you don't realize is that the more you let fear control your thoughts, the more it limits your ability to see your true potential. Fear tricks you into thinking you're not capable of achieving greatness. But if you push through that fear, if you take action despite it, you'll find that you have far more potential than you ever gave yourself credit for. The more you move past your fear, the more you grow, and the more you begin to see opportunities where you once saw only risks. Your mind is one of the most powerful tools you have, and fear is the greatest threat to its power. When fear takes hold of your thoughts, it clouds your judgment, shrinks your possibilities, and holds you back from achieving what you are truly capable of. But when you push through that fear and challenge those limiting beliefs, you tap into your true potential. Fear can no longer dictate your thoughts, and your mind becomes clear, focused, and full of possibility. The more you confront fear and break through its barriers, the more you realize that you have the power to shape your own reality. You can choose to act, to move forward, and to create the life you want, regardless of the fear that stands in your way.